Yeah, we're live. One sec. Let me check. Du-du-du-du-du. Double check LinkedIn.
I see 8 people watching.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, cool.
Guys, if you can
Uh,
hear us, please drop a GM or a hi in the chat so we know it's working from YouTube or LinkedIn. It doesn't matter. I think we should be seeing your comments in about 10 seconds delay.
yeah. Yeah. Check my profile. It's there as well. Okay. Thanks, everyone, for watching, joining as every day, or I mean, not every day. That would be too much. As every week, live Q&A session with Bob and myself. Yeah, Dan is saying hi. What's up,
There
man?
we go.
It looks like it's
There we go.
working. Oh, nice, nice. I can finally see the YouTube comments as well. Um, GM Geert, GM Betonsorten, GM Tom, GM Aim Ladder. This is new. Thanks for the
Nice.
compliment. Aim Ladder. That's a sick.
It sounds
That's a sick name.
like a shooter bot, you know,
Yeah,
like
like
a.
yeah, exactly. A quick, what do you call it? Quick scoping. Oh man, I haven't played in too long. Anand is here from India. What's up, guys? Cool, welcome. We will, yeah, Dan is saying we should do this every hour. That'd be a little bit too much.
A little bit too
So as
much.
a little bit mucho. As always, we will answer your questions. We'll start with the few from Discord. But if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat, whether you're watching on LinkedIn or on YouTube. Um, and yeah, let's kick it off, man.
Let's
First
go.
question we have from Raul Martins, and this one actually was upvoted the most in Discord, so that's nice to see. What scripts do you guys most frequently use or find helpful? What are your thoughts to begin with?
Um, I am using the PMax script from agency Cephii. I think the most frequent at this very moment.
Yeah.
That's where you can see the PMax channel breakdown, at least for what you can see. So you can see what's being pushed in shopping, what's being pushed in video, and what is other, containing search, display, discovery, and that those networks. So that's a script I'm frequently using in order to see well where my ads are getting pushed and delivered in. Other scripts I've used in the past are basically scripts that every Google Ads specialist have used, in my opinion. That contains like the link checker, redirect checker, stuff like the 24/7 bidding scripts that I've used in the
Hmm.
early days, you know, the heat maps. But
Hmm.
after those scripts, I personally saw like kind of a decline in my usage of all of the scripts because all the bid strategies were getting automated. There were tools basically pushed and created to help you with the auditing and monitoring that a lot of scripts did. I'm personally using TrueClicks right now in order to monitor and analyze all of my accounts. So when there's like a conversion action broken or there are broken links, I get a push notification straight away, and that's where I used basically all of these scripts for in the past. Right now, I'm basically using the PMax script that I just mentioned. Do you have any additional scripts that you're using currently?
Not that many. Like you said, a lot of them I think are not necessary anymore, especially when it comes to bidding. Unless you're using manual bidding, of course, then that's a different story. But I don't know if you mentioned quality score script. Did you mention it?
Yeah, it's also that's what I used in the past,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
there are tools for that as well to be used, which are, in my opinion, way more powerful and
Yeah.
more transparent.
Yeah. I would say the single best script right now is the one from Agency Savvy. I keep saying Mike Rose because obviously it's his agency. And I really recommend everyone to use it because it gives such great insights in where PMax has spent your budget on which placements. And I think he actually recently changed it. Last week,
Mhm.
I saw he posted it, that he built in some additional features, and I still have to test those out. And I think it's for. Did you already test it? I think it's for to extract performance ratings from your assets. So
Yeah,
if that's
low, good,
automated,
best.
that's nice too. Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
yeah, that I
but
think
what
that's yeah. Go ahead, man.
yeah, what I would say, there are a lot of scripts for specific purposes, where it's still useful and really powerful to use certain scripts. And what I would say is, head to, for example, a website called adsscripts.com. I
Hmm.
just posted a link in the YouTube comments. It's a basically a directory created by some Dutch Google Ads specialists like Tibbe van Asten, Niels Roymans, Martijn Kraan, Jamea Leijen, and Bas Bourdoin, if I pronounce his name correctly. There are some very creative and powerful scripts on there as well for you to check out.
Yeah,
So these are really specific for specific purposes. But yeah, I would highly recommend going through these scripts.
yeah,
There's some useful ones.
yeah. And I guess one thing to note for scripts is it's fun to play around with them, but you only need a few right now, I would say, because Google Ads management has been simplified a lot.
Mm.
Okay, cool. Question from Lior, and then we will take a few questions from the chat as well. It's also from Discord. How often do you use Bing ads or Microsoft ads, and did you find them successful when compared to Google search?
What
What
do
are your
you
thoughts,
think?
man? Yeah, so
You
yeah,
start.
yeah, cool, cool, cool. For me, it's actually in 99% of the cases, I would say at least give it a try. Probably 100%. I always use it. Performance is actually pretty decent. One thing that is actually important that I've seen in almost every case when I take over a client and they're not using Microsoft Ads, even branded search is already in itself super valuable because sometimes I don't really know why. Maybe their um, search network SEO, let's say outside of Google, might not be optimized. And then they have, like, for example, I've seen uh, branded or the branded unbranded searches. Some clients that I was working with, they would rank in like the third or fourth organic position. So in that case, then even branded search by itself was already super valuable. But you have to realize that, especially in like older demographics, if you buy a Windows laptop now, then Microsoft Edge, formerly Internet Explorer, is the
The
automatically
default. Yeah.
downloaded the default browser. And a lot of people just don't really know how to change that. And the default browser, of course, has Bing as the default search engine. So there's like I think it's somewhere between on average somewhere between about 5 to 10% of market share or something that they have. So
Yeah, it's
just
close. It's
calculate.
close to 10 already in the Netherlands, but it's even bigger in other specific countries in the world.
Yeah,
Some countries go to like 15 or even higher percent in terms of market share.
that's a
So
lot.
yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot, and it
Yeah.
adds up, especially in the bigger budgets. You know.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say always give it a shot. It's super easy to set up because you can just directly sync your campaign structure from Google Ads. And the only thing that you need to double check that the performance is good. If you sync your campaigns, then Microsoft is also like kind of sneaky, just like Google, with
Yeah, sometimes
automatically.
they reset certain configurations and stuff like audience network, stuff
Yes.
like distribution. So that's really something to be careful of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and
What do you
yeah.
think of the automatic synchronization? Do you use it a lot in your specific accounts?
Yeah, I'll at least to begin with for sure, because it's so easy. Like, let's say we're spending random number. Let's say we're spending like 20K per month on Google Ads, and then maybe on Microsoft we will be spending like somewhere between 500 or 1,000, just random number.
Hmm.
Then of course I'm not going to spend most of my time optimizing Microsoft Ads campaigns. Um, So then the sync is super convenient because then you can just
Yeah.
quickly sync it over, maybe pause a few campaigns that are performing well on Google, but not necessarily on Microsoft, like some display campaigns or something. And then it's super easy to at least begin with. And then after your Microsoft Ads account matures a bit, maybe you can start optimizing individual
Yeah.
campaigns. But to begin with, I always do the sync. What about you?
Yeah, it also depends on the budget. So
Yeah.
if your Google Ads account and your Microsoft Ads account are kind of mature and you're starting to pump relatively big budgets into Microsoft Ads, I personally start to look into the details of Microsoft Ads as well and
Mhm.
optimize it as a specific channel instead of just synchronizing them from Google Ads. Because sometimes in some auctions, in some keywords, Microsoft Ads starts to react and perform a little bit different than what Google Ads is doing, especially in certain bid strategies and in
Mhm.
certain verticals, of course. So when you're pushing relatively high budgets and it makes sense for example, your hourly rate in comparison to the monthly spend in Microsoft Ads to optimize it, I would really I would really say try to optimize it as an extra channel because sometimes you can basically increase the performance by just watching the details a little bit more.
Yeah, sounds good. Let's see. Yeah, please can you name the name of the tool again? It's
True
ads.
clicks.
Oh,
Oh,
TrueClicks.
well,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah.
both actually. The one of them was adscripts.com for the scripts, and the other one is TrueClicks. I don't know if you added it in the chat, but they're just Google TrueClicks. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. Uh, let's just see. Yeah. This is a good question. Govind, this is aim ladder. So he was talking from a
Nice.
different account. What do you guys think about click fraud prevention tools? What do you suggest? How can we verify it's not blocking real users? I know you've been testing with a few different suppliers. So what do you think?
Mhm. It's hard. It's difficult, man. Because some click fraud tools are basically black boxes, and you have to trust them on their conclusions. So I know certain entry level click fraud tools. Yeah, they're really easy to use, really easy to set up. But once you start to dig into the data, or you want to see what kind of clicks are excluded and why, in those times you're basically just going to run into a wall because there's not really much explanation going on onto the entry level tools, and you basically have to trust them on their decision making process and their algorithm. So it's a matter of trust, and if you're not trusting it, then you can basically, well, then it's really hard to have it run onto your accounts. There is a way to test this, but it requires the help of your developer. So if you're doing relatively high numbers of spend and you're driving a lot of clicks per day, per month, what you can do is start looking for false positives. What you can do is basically ask for a log of all of the IP addresses that are excluded from your click fraud tool, and then map it map it next to your log server details, so you can see if certain IP addresses that are excluded from your tool were actually converting in your own logbook. So that's something that you can perform and you can do, but you need, of course, the help of your developer because you need to see what kind of IP addresses basically converted or reached certain pages that are your conversion basically, and then you can basically just run a v lookup into Excel and see if there are any false positives. So if that percentage is quite high, then you know that the click fraud tool that you're using is not really working perfectly and might be excluding IP addresses that are valid and converting. And if you see a very low percentage, then I think it should be doing its work. There's one more detail to be told over here. Some click fraud tools also have conversion tags that you can basically push when people convert it on your website. So the click fraud tool gets a ping when certain IP addresses converted and which don't. So the algorithm of the click fraud tool can learn as well. So I think that's a no-brainer to implement if your tool has one, because that makes sure that the algorithm doesn't really exclude valid IP addresses, or at least as possible.
Nice.
If you're running, one final note here, because
Yeah.
it might be interesting for the higher spenders among us. If you are spending a lot of money, they are better click fraud tools over there that do give you all of the details you're looking for. So where are the invalid IP addresses coming from? What kind of why is it invalid? So is it because of malware? Is it because of click bots? Is it because of invalid use of data centers? Stuff like that. And then you can actually start digging into the data and start to understand why certain IP addresses are invalid. So that's a really interesting thing to look at. But those aren't your entry level click fraud tools that everybody knows. So I can give you some names if people want them afterwards.
Yeah.
But let's continue.
Yeah, nice. No, I like it, and I think especially for the last part, research is super important when you're working with tools like these.
Mhm.
Because for me personally, I really want to see a dashboard with a lot of information about how they're excluding, and they are. I think those tools are also like sort of modeling on where to exclude. It's not always a one-on-one exact match, right? Um,
It's really hard to understand if you do not have the factual information. So that's
yeah,
something that I think a lot of people are struggling with, just like Govind, and I can understand that.
yeah. Cool. Um, so yeah, it's also test out a few tools if you can. Maybe if you have different clients, you can test them on different clients and just see which one gives you the best user experience as well. I think that's an important one too.
Mhm.
Question from Mike. Thank you for your question. Thoughts
That's
on
one for you. Let me ask you this one. What are your thoughts on similar audiences? We all know that they're going away, and optimized targeting is basically the replacement of it. It was already introduced, and you could already use it. But how do you use it now, and how will you use it once similar audiences are basically fully away?
Yeah. So these are my thoughts about similar audiences. They didn't really perform that well for me at all in the past. Sometimes they did, but most of the times, actually, they didn't perform as well as I wanted them to perform. And then it's, of course, I'm talking about YouTube and display. I
Mhm.
would never target search on similar audiences except for like observation purposes. Um, but if I compare similar audiences on Google to lookalike audiences on Facebook, or at least like of a few years ago, then Google was not nearly as good at um, targeting similar users based on similar audiences. That's just my personal experience. I do see
Mhm.
that the last few months it was improving, but I was still wasn't really too happy about the performance that I was getting with my clients. Um, but that's one, and it doesn't really matter anymore because it's going away anyway. But now optimized targeting. Yeah, you want to add something?
Yeah. No, how do you so let's say you would want to start experimenting with optimized targeting. How would you set it up for your own clients? In your within the back of your mind, knowing that similar audiences didn't really perform well for you.
Yeah. Well, what the approach that I'm currently doing with audience targeting in general is just begin with as high intent as possible audiences. So that is just custom intents, um, basically custom segments based on search terms and maybe
Hmm.
URLs. That's the first step. And then once we get that performing well, then we might look into other audiences, but also look into optimized targeting, audience expansion. And the reason that I like that approach is because optimized targeting is just basically open targeting. Sure, it's taking the signals from the audiences that you're already targeting and looking for similar people in that audience. But generally speaking, my experience is if we can't get the normal audience to perform well, then optimized targeting is usually not performing as well either. But I did have a big client that we did a lot of YouTube spend on between November and December, and November December, between around Black Friday and Christmas, and then optimized targeting was performing really well. But it's also yeah. Uh, Kind of like special time because it's Black Friday. The conversion rates are already much higher, and almost everything is working well between Black Friday and Christmas, especially in ecom, because people are just they have their wallets ready to buy. Um, it's just that's
They
what
actually
it
have their
is.
wallet ready to buy a wallet.
Buy a wallet, yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I do see optimized targeting is getting better, but I also see that if we have a custom intent audience targeting, for example, um, then the spend that goes through optimized targeting can sometimes be 3, 4 times much higher than the actual audience, even if the audience size is really big.
Mm.
So
So you have
it's
to
kind of a
take a really, really close eye on the results of your optimized targeting, your expansion, basically.
Yeah, and it's a classic it depends thing because it can work really well and it can also not work well. So what you need to do is just if you have optimized targeting on, which the default setting is actually it is on. So if you want to turn it off, you have to go into the ad group because it's super hidden again. You have to go into the ad group settings to turn it off. But if you want to have it, if you have it on, you can just go in your campaign to audiences and then you have the table with all the audience segments that you're targeting. Then at the bottom of the audience, at the bottom of the table, you will see the performance, the total performance for all of the audiences, and beneath that, there's a line for the performance on the optimized targeting. So if I have specific ad groups with optimized targeting on, and let's say the CPA is much higher than the CPA on the audience, then I might turn it off.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, and people still mess up the optimized targeting with remarketing. So if you're running
mhm,
your remarketing campaigns, make sure to triple check the optimized targeting setting when you want to remarket. Otherwise, it starts to expand. Just a
yeah,
little tip. I still see
and
people
that's
fuck
a
up. Fuck up.
yeah, for sure, for sure. But one thing that I'm actually testing, that I have been testing for a few months now, and I might just do a write up in the PPC Edge about it, is to do optimized targeting on remarketing, but as on purpose, so
Mm.
that you do prospecting
First
based on
party. Yeah,
person. Yeah, exactly. I got
that's nice. Yeah.
I don't remember who I got this idea from. Someone on LinkedIn, maybe not Menachem Ani. I'm not sure. But it's actually showing pretty interesting results. But then you have to realize, of course, it's prospecting and it's not remarketing.
Yeah.
So you just
You
gotta be
shouldn't you
gotta be
shouldn't name
aware.
it as remarketing in your campaign name.
No, no, no,
Otherwise,
no.
people will think, "What are you doing?"
Exactly.
So I think
Um,
Mike had a great follow up question regarding the first party data that you pre selected that one as well.
yeah, let me check, Mike. Which one is it? Maybe you
Uh,
just say it out loud.
I'm going to 1 second. 1 second. Where is it?
On
Weekly
GDPR?
questions. Mike. Also GDPR and first party data, customer match list. So that's the first part of the question
Yeah,
that this one ends with. I have had several clients with concerns regarding this. So I think Mike means what do you do with first party data? How comfortable are you using those kind of data lists into your Google Ads accounts? And how do you make sure it's GDPR AVG proof?
I'm gonna
Um,
redirect that to you, so go ahead.
Thank you. I'm the legal boy now.
Yeah,
Okay, everything I'm going to say is for information purposes
not
only.
legal advice. Entertainment purposes. Don't
so
sue us.
yeah. What is extremely important is if you are sending over first party data through your tags. by, for example, enhanced conversions, then you want to have it covered into your terms and conditions, and your privacy policy, of course. So what you see in a lot of e-commerce stores is that you have to, well, agree on the terms and condition and the privacy policy before you can finalize your offer. It's important that you include over there that you're using the first party data, so the email address, telephone number, or even the address of the customer for marketing purposes, basically, because that's the highest tier, and people have to agree with that, because you're going to use it. You're going to send it over to Google Ads, and yes, of course, it's going to be hashed with a privacy-friendly algorithm, but you're still sending it over to Google, and Google is still being able to connect all the dots with these kind of information sets. So make sure to double check your terms and conditions, privacy policy, and if you have a legal department within your business, go over there, because they will make sure that everything is set up correctly, TNC wise. So same goes for customer lists, because if you are sending over the customer data once in a while, so one-time uploads or even scheduled by synchronizing it with your CRM, it's basically the same next to enhanced conversions, for example. So in that specific case, I would also be very clear in your terms and conditions, in your privacy policy, that you're using this data set for marketing purposes. If you're not that clear, well, then I think you're going to run into problems if someone finds out. So make sure to double check with your legal department. I'm always proposing this to my clients that I work with. Well, hey, this is what we can do, and this is why it's good to be working with, for example, enhanced conversions, customer lists. But then I basically just say, you make sure that all your terms and conditions and privacy policies are correct. That's not one of my responsibilities. I don't want to be I don't want to get complaints regarding this. So that's your part. And most of the clients make sure that, well, they hire someone to double check it. They forward it to their legal department, and etc. So that's how I deal with it.
One thing to add is, actually, I remember this from when I was working at an agency before I started freelancing, is that I think officially, maybe you know this, Bob, I think officially the client is supposed to upload their customer list inside of Google Ads, unless they maybe like give you legal, unless they allow you legally to do so. Otherwise,
Well, I have signed a I don't know the
yeah, okay,
English word, but
a
it's a
waiver or something like that.
verwerkingsovereenkomst.
Yeah,
I don't
like
know.
an
Do you know
agreement.
the? Yeah, it's like an agreement that you are basically working with personal details of your customer, and you're allowed
Mm,
to upload these kind of data.
yeah,
So if you sign that document and you do everything that's basically agreed on, and you're also doing a GDPR proof, then I think there's no problem. But the safest way, of course, is to let your customer just upload it. So you do not have to see and work with all the privacy, all the privacy related data. Or let your client basically set up the integration from their CRM directly to Google Ads. So you're not the one with like a Zapier account connected between it. That's also prone to error or hacks. I don't know. Yeah,
yeah, cool.
a lot of important details to be told of here.
Yeah, and it's not legal advice.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, thanks, Mike. Good question. Dan, if you could please elaborate on how to use competitor audiences, not search. Thanks. Yeah, check the PPC Edge on Monday. We'll actually deep dive in how we use competitor URL audiences to sort of hijack some of the traffic from our competitors. Um, yeah, you're welcome, Mike. Let's see if we can do a final question.
Paul has a good addition regarding
Yeah,
the stuff we just say. Maybe it's good to show
what's
it.
he saying? Thanks, Bob. I asked a question about this in Discord, and this answer makes it very clear that enhanced conversions aren't allowed without accepting marketing cookies. Is
Well,
that
basically, you can go one step further. If people didn't accept your marketing slash ad storage cookies and they didn't consent with that, you aren't allowed to fire your Google Ads pixel. So if people do not consent, you're basically GDPR wise wrecked because you aren't allowed to fire it. There is a way to fire it on the light version, so everything gets pulled away, so it's as less privacy minded as possible, and that's basically working with consent mode. So if you work with consent mode and let Google know that a visitor didn't consent with marketing cookies or ad storage consent, then you are still allowed to fire the tag. But Google will make sure that it's really minimized, well, details wise, and all your conversions that otherwise would be missed will start to get modeled by an algorithm. So yeah, that's a follow up thing.
nice? Cool.
Good addition,
Let's
Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, man, for sure. Let's finish with the question from Sebastian. If your search campaigns aren't converting well and PMax is just generating good results, is it efficient to just run PMax, or is it necessary to run search too? What do you think?
I think always start with search. But you have to figure out why your PMax is generating results and your search campaigns aren't, because that's something that I do not really see happening in my accounts. But that's also maybe because I start with search and then expand to PMax when search starts converting and works. So maybe double check on your search categories and make sure what's working in PMax, and put it up next to your search campaigns to make sure if it's bidding on the same terms, and also make sure that your conversion actions aren't getting triggered differently within search or PMax. Maybe you're running campaign specific goals that are getting triggered in PMax and not in search, or vice versa. So I think this isn't really that common. What do you
Yeah.
think, Miles?
Yeah, my first question would also be, is this e-commerce lead gen? What kind of client is it? I can imagine for e-com that your PMax will perform better than search because
Yeah,
it also contains shopping, which is usually performing better than search if you had to choose between the two of them. But yeah, no, let's say to just answer your question like black and white, is it necessary to run search? No, but I will definitely, as Bob said, try to diagnose why your search campaign is not working well. Check your search terms, check your bidding strategy, check your campaign structure, check your keywords. There's a lot of factors that go, yeah, that sort of determine whether that campaign is going to be performing well or not. And then once you kind of find where the weak spot is, try to optimize. And that is sort of generic advice because we don't really know too much about the account. But no, yeah, I agree with Bob. It's definitely uncommon to see this, and I think if you dive deep into the campaigns, then you should be, depending on the industry, etc. You should be able to get search running profitably as well, in
yeah,
most cases.
in most cases.
All right.
Um,
Uh, yeah,
One last question.
cool. That's it. Because I saw
Maybe
this
the one.
question is that, yeah, go.
Oh, I
Which
can
one?
pull it up as well, right?
Oh, you can do
Yeah.
it. Yeah, nice,
Ah, nice. Yeah, I'm an admin. Let's
nice.
go. Dan is asking, would you recommend DSA for blog posts over regular search for generic non-commercial queries keywords? What do you think ecom wise?
Would you recommend DSA for blog post over regular search for
I think
generic
it's less relevant for e-commerce
non-commercial?
than for Legion, though.
Okay, let's start with
Yeah.
ecom then quickly. Okay, so I would never actually say to use DSA over search. I would always say do both because the combination is really strong. In your standard search set, then you probably mean that there you have your commercial high intent keywords, which is sort of the basic foundation. and then on top of that, you can run DSA to catch even more additional search terms. But I would say even if a query is not commercial, there could still be a buying intent behind it. And reason that I'm saying that is I don't have the exact data from Google to back it up, but you can see that a lot of like every day people are searching a lot of new ways, and a lot of new search queries are popping up in the search engine. So a lot of them you would be able to catch with your standard search keywords. So then DSA is definitely super interesting to catch that. But on the other hand, I also see okay, let's use an actual example from a client of mine that's selling wallets. Their product is a smart wallet, and smart wallet is not really a generic keyword, because if you're looking for smart wallet, you already know what you're looking for. But we also see a lot of conversions coming in on the keyword wallet. But the wallet in itself, that keyword is super generic. It could be a $2 basic like leather wallet that is just the big fat ones, the bifolds. But it could
The
also be
boomer
someone that
wallets.
is yeah, the boomer, the guy from Seinfeld wallet. But it could also be that someone's looking for like a more high end type of wallet, or even Gucci wallet or Louis Vuitton wallet. um, and because smart bidding is able to distinguish the intent behind the search term based on the user behavior, then those generic, maybe sometimes non-commercial queries can also convert well. So then DSA would be a super nice addition. Also, broad match can also do that, but that's a different story. But that's why I see like the combination is usually the best. What's your take, man, from Regen?
For lead gen purposes, yeah, same take regarding that. You want to have like your keywords in place, and then start expanding, looking for additional volume through DSA. And for some of my clients, actually, a lot of conversion volume is getting in through blog pages, through informational articles. Always make sure that you have good call to actions included over there, because that's where a lot of businesses basically fuck up. They start to run DSA to capture more traffic, but then there's not a really good follow up on those blog pages, and it's just pure informational and very boring to go through. But if it's written correctly and it's actually helping potential customers in their search for example, the wallet you just talked about, and you're plugging your products correctly, then it could be a great additional source of conversions. How do you set it up? The very last question from Raul Roll. Do you set it up in a solo specific campaign, so basically a DSA campaign only, or do you integrate it within your search campaigns as one ad group or multiple ad groups?
Yeah, both. And for a little bit more elaborate answer, I think you can also go back to last week's Q&A on our YouTube channel, because I think we spoke about it in last week's session as well, pretty in depth. But what I usually do is the first DSA targeting that you can do, that is usually probably will be the best performing one, is an ad group in which you target um, all of the landing pages that you're targeting inside of your other ad groups with search keywords.
Yeah, so
That's
you're
one.
100% sure it's relevant. Yeah.
Exactly, because you're already
Yeah.
targeting those landing pages.
Mhm.
But you could also expand it. I actually still use DSA campaign as well, and sometimes I just do all pages, and then I just add it. Then it depends on the type of client that you have. If you have like
And the
hundreds of
budget, I
thousands of
think.
pages and the
Yeah.
budget, if you have hundreds of thousands of pages, and then it's probably not manageable. But then you can exclude a lot of the pages that are just yeah, not performing well or shouldn't be targeted at all, like contact pages, or unless that's of course necessary. Um, but yeah, it's usually a combination of both. And then last week I was actually triggered by what you said about page feeds. So maybe you wanna touch on that again, and then your take as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great. There's a great comment of I think it's Mike, right? Because
Yes, Mike.
I can I can see his profile picture.
Yeah,
So
nice.
Mike is saying check out our last week's Q&A because we really touched on a lot of DSA related questions like these, including the page feed question you just asked me. You can find it on our YouTube channel. Just search for PPC Mastery. And you can find last week Q&A and rewatch it. So we do not start to repeat everything we say. So yeah, it's 40 minutes instead of 30 minutes. I think we can do this the whole afternoon long. But I still have to prepare dinner for tomorrow's last year day. So
Nice.
so I'm a little bit busy this afternoon. So thanks everyone for watching. We actually made some stickers, so a lot of people watching wouldn't know what these are. I think.
Nice.
But
This is so sick.
these made me lol. I had so much fun creating all of these stickers. We've got like professional teleperformance, sales call dismisser stickers. We actually got professional recommendation dismissal expert stickers made. So we will be giving some away very soon. I think we will be hosting like a quiz very soon, also on a Friday afternoon, to just have some fun. And we will send over some stickers around the world. I think that would be fun to do.
Yeah.
So
sick,
Harry,
yeah.
I'm sorry we didn't touch on your questions. We've had a lot in the chat. What you can do is go to our Discord channel, make sure that you drop your question over there so it gets upvoted. We always start with the Discord related questions, and sometimes you're lucky, sometimes unfortunately not. So yeah, I'm sorry we couldn't touch on yours today. But yeah, that's it. I think we're going to cut it off over here.
For sure. One last note there on Hari's question. If you go to our YouTube channel, there I think we uploaded already like 8 or 9 sessions, and we answered your question already like 2 or 3 times. So if you go back and watch them, maybe go through all of them, but click through and then you will find the question, and then you'll find your answer there as well. Okay. Yeah, that's nice. Awesome, Paul. Love it.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Paul. Have a great New Year. I think. How do you say it? Nieuwjaarsdag, New Year's Day.
New Year, yeah. So New Year's Eve is basically how you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Make the most of tomorrow, and we will see you next week. Ciao, guys.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, guys. See ya. Bye.
Ciao.